okay, I'm one of those sort of fools that browses the internet and reads a lot, I guess, on it. And one of the common things you'll read about one is uh, there's a lot of advertising done these days by shoe manufacturers, and one of the key things they advertise is Goodyear welted. And I'm like, oh,
Right.
okay, wow, that sounds great. But then so many people say that it's like, really? Is okay. So everyone's saying that. Okay, maybe if so many people are saying it, that's like a really good thing. But um, I guess that was maybe a couple years ago. I don't know if necessarily shoe manufacturers do that now, but certainly I think that was the case when I went a couple years ago. And so with that, I guess there's always been a lot of chatter, and it's like, well, Goodyear welted is actually very so. It's kind of it's kind of like the actual um, maybe it's like maybe bare minimum. I'm not sure if that's the right
Mm-hmm.
thinking, but at least that's what it came off as. Goodyear Welted is kind of bare minimum. It's like that. It's nothing special. It's kind of just marketing. So I guess from your opinion, well, maybe you can go back a step. Maybe you could explain what welting is, and maybe what Goodyear welting is, and maybe what's function is, and what I guess the different types of welting are. Would that
Mm-hmm.
be all right?
Well, yeah, well, I mean, there's one basic one. I mean, Goodyear came from actual person who developed the process and the machinery to attach this extra piece of leather to the bottom of an insole when you're making shoes. Prior to having just pastes and pegging of bottoms and nails and so on and so forth. So uh, the I don't. I'm sure you might have been related to the Goodyear family, but so the process of actually attaching a separate um, piece of rib to hold this leather welting that goes around the border of the shoe, you attach this welt, as I said, all the way around. Some people use what's called a 360 welt, which goes edge to edge all the way around. And then there's what they call a three-quarter or breast to breast. Breast is the very front of the heel going towards the toe. That's referring to. So the two types are, fairly common in shoe construction, or at least it was once upon a time. A lot of people are going towards some people prefer what's called little way construction, which is generally a stuck-on sole, but then it's sewn all the way through to the inside of the insole rather than an extending rib out on the feather edge of the shoe. So Goodyear welting was, and probably still is to many people, kind of the standard bearer of shoemaking and shoe construction. Some people love it, some people like it, some people don't really give two hoots probably. They'll wear anything that looks good and fits well on their feet. So I would say that there's a lot of that Goodyear welting done in British shoes factories, because was kind of, as I said, their standard bearer for many, many years, and still is to a large degree. The Italians tend to do a little bit of each, some Goodyear, some what's called Goodyear Flex now, which is a little bit of a different process, but sort of gives you the same concept and construction idea. And as I said, and then there's just the little way attaching. So, and then there's just regular stuck-on shoes, regular just good old adhesive, put all the components together as one unit, attach it to the top of the shoe with a heat process, and boom, it's done. So that's probably, I would maybe guess, 92% of the construction around the world because you don't need as much machinery and it's much more economical. So there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, as best I can describe it. So I hope I didn't wander too far off the
No,
beaten path
no,
for you.
I don't think you did. In fact, I have more questions about it. So don't worry.
Okay,
But I guess so to summarize, there's I guess the most basic was just gluing the bottom part of the shoe on to the rest, and then there's what you were saying. You can stitch it, and it's either completely stitched 360 degrees around the shoe, or just the the portion above the heels. Did that,
correct.
and so okay, I think I got all that. Where does oh, I guess some people throw in Blake stitching construction.
Blake Littleway. It's the
Oh, okay.
Littleway again is goes back to the type of machinery that's used for the construction of Littleway. So it's a machine process to in large part, and
Okay.
the two terms are kind of
Synonymous.
thrown about
Okay. So they're
pretty
actually
similarly.
got it. Okay. And so there's that, and then there's I guess the other two that I've heard about are like I don't know. I'm gonna butcher it, but it's like Norwegian or that the one that's like very
Norwegian, yeah, that's where they, yeah, that's one of them. What's the other one you were going
and,
to
and
ask about?
and the other one I guess was just hand welted hand stitch. I'm not
Hand
sure.
welting, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
where do these um, other two come in, or what exactly is the difference, or different function or capability of these other two?
So Norwegian is done. It's kind of archaic to describe it. It's easier to tell somebody to pull up a video and look
Well,
at it.
yeah, I'll probably put some links,
But
I guess.
there are some things out there that shows Norwegian. It's actually turning the part of the upper of the shoe, instead of turning it under, it's turned out a little bit, and then the insole is um, stitched through the upper, and it's a cross stitch. Um, it's sometimes it's a 3-needle stitch. There are machines that actually do this now. Years ago, and probably still some people do it by hand. But it actually, as I said, and rather than turning the leather underneath on the last, it turns it out. Would that be 90 degrees, I guess, from what's called the feather edge, and then the various parts are sewn together, and then there's another stitching process done to attach the outsoles. That's the best I can describe it. It makes actually a kind of a nice shoe. It's very strong, obviously, and it was, I think, although don't quote me on this, but I'm sure somebody will, and messed me up on on some social media page and trash me somewhere. But in large part, it was done as part of kind of, I would say, moccasin hiking style boots for trekking in lots of cold weather and things of that nature. And it just created this very beefy bottom of a shoe, very sturdy and very secure. So that's what I can tell you about Norwegian, which isn't much, but
Okay, well,
that's
no,
what
that's
I.
plenty. Coming from you, it gives it authority, so
Well,
that's
I don't
fine.
know about that, but I'll take it where I can get it, right?
Yeah, and so and then hand welting, which I guess the initial sense is, well, it sounds like it's done by hand, and therefore it's like the the most artistic and best and whatnot. But I mean, what I don't know, what are your thoughts, or what can you say about hand welted shoes?
Well, hand welted shoes is pretty much the provenance of the bespoke maker. There are just, it's just kind of that tradition that's been carried through for quite a while. So consequently, it's just the nature of how they do it. So basically, rather than putting a rib and an extra piece of welting on the insole, they basically, with knives and other tools, create a ledge, or so to speak, or a ribbing right on the insole out of the leather bottom, and basically do some tapering and some other little things, and do the sewing directly to the insole. And one, it gives it obviously strength, flexibility, and they're usually using a pretty beefy linen thread that's usually waxed or pitched or some of each. It's a bit of a process to explain if you haven't ever seen it or experienced it, but it also, by virtue of the kind of leathers that they use doing this, it makes a very light shoe, very strong, and as I said, it's pretty much the provenance of the bespoke makers these days. Now the Goodyear Flex that a lot of the Italian factories are starting to use, what they did was they found a way that they can actually, through a piece of machinery that has a very specific operation, that you can actually lay the insole onto this machine and it will move around, or a blade will move around, or I'm trying to remember, I guess the insole actually gets rotated all the way around, and they literally will cut a rib from sort of I wouldn't say necessarily the center of the insole, but sort of towards the feather edge of the insole, and it's cut towards the actual edge of the insole. So when you wet this and you bend it up, it creates its own rib. So you can now actually sew, again with another special piece of machinery, can actually sew the welts right onto this rib and make it just as strong, if not stronger, than a hand-sewn welt, and have all the flexibility and everything else you'd want. That's the sort of, I guess you could say, the high tech. If it's not really high tech, but it's the newest iteration of Goodyear welting.
Interesting. Oh, okay. So, to be honest, I'll have to like re-listen to everything you just said to, I think, really wrap my head around everything and maybe get some diagrams off the internet. But I guess, I mean, for maybe like the layperson, which I would consider myself pretty, uneducated shoe person, and for any other listeners who maybe didn't quite understand, I guess, the whole technical explanation. I mean, what would I guess maybe could you just, over the past few things you've said, the hand welted shoe, the you're gonna have to pronounce that one again. That one begins with N. Goodyear Flex, and the, I forgot what term you used, but it was the Blake one. I mean, could you maybe just go
Blake Little Way, yeah,
Little Way, Blake, right? Maybe what like the strengths or the main benefit of that version is, just to give people an idea of, I don't know, just like quick takeaway.
Yeah. I mean, welted shoes, as I said, they're always very, very strong. They last a long time, provided that you maintain them, pretty much like any shoe. A Norwegian construction, again, very strong, very sturdy. Usually, as I said, there's sometimes a double sole on them. So they tend to be a little difficult to break in, but they will wear like iron. And then the Blake / Little Way construction, much cheaper to produce on a factory setting, and more flexible typically. Longevity, you probably are not going to get the longevity of Blake construction the way you are a Goodyear welt, but that's just the nature of the beast. So I wouldn't say there's a little bit of everything out there, and then there's obviously the last one is just some adhesive construction. So where everything's just spray a layer of adhesive on the upper, spray a layer of adhesive on the finished bottom. It's all like one big component that makes it look like there's separate components to it. Some components are separate, some aren't, but as I said, they do such a good job with it. That's why it's a relatively inexpensive process. Spray the uppers, spray the bottoms, let the adhesive set up. Then usually what they do is they activate the adhesive in an activator, a heat activation system, and then they put them in a press. Boom, it's done. It goes down the line and doesn't have much else you have to do to it. Just kind of clean and condition the uppers, polish them, put them in a box, and ship them out. So those are, I guess, what would that be? I don't know, 4 or 5 basic types of construction that most people would probably be buying in today's shoe market.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, sorry, the thought just occurred to me. Otherwise, I would have asked you earlier. But coming from the shoe repair side of things, are they all roughly the same to repair, or are some like you can't really repair this type, or whatnot?
Well, cemented construction shoes tend to be more problematic simply because a lot of the components, like the bottom components, the heels, the soles, they're all one solid piece to make it look like they're separate components. Makes it look like a normally constructed shoe, but a lot of times, as I said, that component is a solid piece of rubber, and it's got leather inlaid in it to make it look like there's a leather stacked heel on it or a leather sole or whatever. So there's a lot of, I don't know what you would call it, bait and switch sort of thing, if you want to, cut it down to that moniker. So that's, I don't know where we were going with this question. I can't.
With the repair, sorry, with the repair. With the repair.
Oh, the repair is part of it. Yeah, the cemented construction is a problem, and also for longevity, because eventually, as you flex your foot, these adhesives will start to break loose, and as your foot heats up inside the shoe, it can activate the adhesives, and et cetera, et cetera. So Norwood Yeezy can be a little problematic if you don't know what you're doing. The Blake little way stitch down process is, they're okay to repair. I wouldn't say it's a match made in heaven when it comes to the repair service, but it depends on the quality of the materials that are used and the type of insole material, because so many of the insoles in those kinds of Blake shoes, a lot of times they're just like a fiberboard, not really leather. They kind of look like leather, but they're not. So they tend to shred a little bit and be a little problematic from a repair side. I mean, a good Goodyear welt is, that's not been abused or mucked up anywhere along the line, is really nice to repair, to take apart and put back together. It's a little fussy if you're doing it properly. Like right now, I'm reconditioning a pair of Edward Green shoes for a customer, and I think a couple of weeks ago I have a guy who's, and the repair goes pretty well. It's, as I said, to take apart, put that together, put the proper soles on, everything else, and restitch them. Everything goes pretty smoothly. Blake little way construction, as I said, can be a little problematic. I have a customer that I do. He's in love with these Gucci horsebit loafers that I guess Gucci sort of discontinued a while back, but he sends me piles of them all the time. And they're all the same shoe. They're all black. They're all the same horse bit. They're all got all the same
Now you're starting to wonder if they're all his or he's got like
uh,
extended family that uses you.
no, you can tell by the wear patterns in them that they're all his. But anyway, so those kinds of things. But if you know what you're doing and you take it apart properly, you can put it back together properly. They're a little fussy, but you just have to be aware that people like these things and hang on to these things because they just find them to be, so to speak, the bee's knees, or the shoes to choose, and consequently, it's you got to put them back together in the same fashion that they were manufactured. So that's what we do on that side of it. So there's good and bad in everything, as I said. So there's no and people just generally don't have. I wouldn't say generally. It's too much of a broad brushstroke, but there's just a lot of people who just don't know or don't care to take care of their shoes properly, and sometimes you get them and they're on life support. So it's never an easy call just to say, well, this is going to be this way, this is going to be this way. So in general, I think most people who do any kind of recrafting of footwear will probably have a certain hierarchy similar to what I described as to what they like or prefer to work on and really recondition and rebuild them and craft, whatever term you want to use. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Fair. No, fair. That's fair enough. I think that was helpful, and I'm glad I got to get your expert opinion. I'll stress that just in case anyone wants to say anything bad or disagree. It was your opinion. I'm glad to get that because to be honest, this is like one of those things that people will talk about on the internet and go countless and countless conversations about it. And I mean, I don't know. To me, I never really bothered, and I just I don't know. They structure. I mean, functionally, they all seem similar. I mean, yes, there's differences, but then I don't know. They kind of do the same
Yeah,
stuff, and I haven't really noticed any difference. But then again, I don't know. I'm thick-headed.
yeah,
It tends to
yeah.
be difficult for me to notice things. So,
Right.
just curious. But um, uh, I guess talking about these factories, I mean, I don't know if in previous conversations we touched a bit on it, but I think at um, and maybe it was just in your conversations with me. I guess you've hinted that you've worked with factories or have worked with factories or consulted with
Mm-hmm.
folks who
Yep.
worked with shoe
Yep.
factories and all
Yep.
that. And we talked all kind of about your like, kind of one man band or one man shop operation and all that. But I'm kind of curious how much you've dabbled with factories and I don't know. I I'm not sure if there's any particular question, but maybe you just want to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. The thing I've done over many years is try to partner with some people that I think make decent footwear. A lot of the issue for people overseas is the trepidation of doing business in the U.S. and I would say somewhat the competitive nature, but it's so expensive now to run factories in the European Union. Wage structures, employee benefits, different things that the government requires. So it's a rather daunting process. I would say that most of the factories that I've done consulting with and had conversations with about product for the U.S. Eventually winds up kind of running a dead end simply because of the costs of doing business out of their home turf. So, and I understand that. And especially the fact that, not that we have an open door policy with imports from the Far East, but that market is kind of really killing the better shoe market here in the States when you can manufacture shoes at such ungodly numbers of pairs per week or even per day, and get some really good looks out of them, and even doing some Goodyear construction, Goodyear welting shoes and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So consequently, I would say that the prospects of having some new players enter the market it's difficult unless you, I guess, can really go upscale all the way. Something like the Bontoni family did with their product, but that comes at a premium price. So if you're trying to do something in that mid-tier range, it's not that there isn't a market there, but it's just when you start adding in your costs and your travel and your this and your that and everything else, import duties, it's tough. It's, as I said, cheap imports are it's pretty much, not pretty much, it's killed the shoe industry in the United States, just like many other industries. So I would say that the outlook for some good good foreign makers over here, it's not really, I would see, on the horizon anytime in the near future, unless things really change dramatically and whatnot. That's why when people travel and they go to France or to the UK or to Italy and they see product over there that you never see here in the United States, and it's well made, it's well styled, it's good quality materials, but you buy it there and something happens to it. When you get it back here, then you're kind of stuck trying to find somebody who can handle those kinds of things. So I'm sorry I've got a little long-winded about that, but it's just, I think, the nature of what's happening. I think people would love the idea of having some kind of conduit into the United States. It's just that when they start looking at all the dollars and cents or the euros or the pounds, it just starts to really get a little daunting, and it starts to look like, can't really justify the number of man hours that would go into doing something like that. And so I think there's probably an argument on both sides of the aisle for that thing, but as I said, we just don't have access to some of the better products, and some of the designer makes that everybody gravitates towards, and we all know the names and the labels and this and that and everything else. They're not made better than other makers. Believe me, it's not. You're really kind of buying a name when it comes down to it. So it's a shame that we don't have a little more diversity in our market, but it just kind of seems to be what's occurred as far as globalization of products.
Mm-hmm. Well, to be honest, in your spiel, I thought you were actually headed. I mean, well, at one point in the conversation, I was thinking, are you referring to the fact that American tastes are, a number of factors in the U.S., but the average consumer has access to a lot cheaper products, and the general culture of American dressing or what have you kind of doesn't really benefit like kind of a mid-tier, more expensive shoe when I don't know, for Americans it seems quantity over most things, and the cheap products you can get, like you mentioned, from Asia. I mean, it kind of like almost seemed like you were, in my head, headed towards the culture in America is different, and yes, the prices are a factor, but there's that different culture which makes it different. Is something maybe Europeans aren't as I don't know, aware of when trying to get into the market. I don't know. Was that just in my head that I was creating that?
No, maybe not.
Logic?
Maybe there's some part of that, but I would generally say that Europeans don't. Well, for the most part, Europeans, at least from what I've observed for all the number of years I've been traveling back and forth to different corners of Europe, they don't seem to have as much as we do in the way of personal goods, maybe numbers of shoes, suits, shirts, ties, whatever it is. But what they have, they tend to buy as good or better quality than what might be in our traditional types of haberdasheries here in the States. So they're thinking about longevity, where I think America, because our shores are flooded with so much stuff. I mean, it goes on almost ad nauseum at some point. So, somebody's going to get a pair of shoes, a guy who's, and I'm not, it's not like a knock on it, somebody who's just out of a, four-year degree university and going into a job, they may not have a lot of money. So if they're spending $90 or getting a pair of shoes to get going with, that's what they do. But when we start having all these lifestyle issues, and as I said, there's so much stuff here that people can buy, whether it's trainers and walking boots, hiking boots, weightlifting shoes, on and on and on and on. It starts to have these multipliers that we have a shoe or for every activity, we have a pair of trousers or athleisure wear for every kind of workout or yoga practice or something like that. So I think, and because we're such a consumer-based economy, we just, as long as people are making it somewhere in the world and then bringing it in at a good price, pretty sure we're going to buy it. Whether we buy it full price, wait till it goes on sale, or wait till it goes into a discount market. So we just have a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think what you just said rings true, because I know I have family overseas, and I mean, of course, our salaries and whatnot are maybe different. Actually, no, they I think are about the same level, and certainly our house is just filled with junk that we never use, or maybe we use once or twice, and that's never the case with our relatives. Like everything they have, they like use constantly, and it's like the same thing they use over and over. Whereas for us, we just use it once and never use it again, or whatnot. So no, I think a ring is completely true. That we just like to have all these things. Yeah. And to us, maybe that's the fun part, and actually like using the products and whatnot is at some point or another we'll get around to that. So I don't know. I think I think that's an interesting take. And I guess one thing I was kind of curious about, because I know you. Well, you brought it up. In your shop, there hangs that Jay Peterman poster, which I'm kind of curious. Like, I don't know, how did that collaboration?
That's a long story. Oh, mamma mia.
Well, that's perfect. Maybe that's perfect cliffhanger for the next episode, because I'd love to get like a story woven here and there. I love your technical talk, and I'm sure some folks are gonna enjoy that. But sometimes I'm it's
but
like
it's pretty damn boring.
well, no, but I mean, I want to get a mix of things. So maybe next time on the next episode we can talk about that story, because I'm kind of curious. That's like I don't know I don't know how that happened. So I guess I would just like to know. But we can save that for next time. Don't sweat it.
It's pretty long, somewhat convoluted. Has to do with the movie Titanic.
Perfect.
And,
So okay. So lots of twists and turns.
It's all there.
Love it. Okay. Cool. We'll save that for next time.
It's a deep dive, as they say, as
awesome.
James Cameron said.
All right. I guess. Let's see. I did have. Okay. Well, one thing, I guess. I mean, this isn't really a common question, but I mean, when you talked about starting out and you graduate your university and maybe you have an interview you have to go to, and for the first time in your life you have to wear nice leather shoes and whatnot. I remember that actually very distinctly, and went to the like Sears or whatnot, and
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother bought me like this $20. I don't even. I mean, it's like plastic, but I mean, it looked the part, so that was
Well,
fine.
sure.
But and
Yeah.
I think I literally never wore them again because it's just like, man, they're terrible. They're ugly, and I don't like them. But I guess they kind of feel like sneakers, even though they're supposed to be um, dress shoes. But I, I I'm rambling here, but I don't know if that's the case anymore because there's so many makers with lower prices. But I remember when I first started uh, working, and I would still
Mm-hmm.
back then I would read a lot on the internet. But boy, secondhand clothes was a huge thing. It was like the one way to get nice clothes for without really paying those prices. And maybe it's still a thing. To be honest, I'm not sure, but I get the feeling now there's a lot of cheaper options that there were years ago. So maybe not so much anymore, but. Certainly back then it was a huge deal. Like that's how you could get all your like super nice top tier fashion items for cheap. But in for shoes in particular, one comment, but even back then stuck out to me, which is, oh, you should never buy secondhand shoes because one, it's like the the other person's foot. I mean, maybe this sounds disgusting already to some people, and they would never think to buy secondhand shoes. But I mean, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. For some people like me, I mean, I'm used to buying secondhand stuff, so it it didn't occur to me. But people, the a previous owner's foot is going to be creating a particular, I guess, like a mold or groove in that footbed. One, and so it doesn't it's not really going to conform to your foot and it's going to be uncomfortable is one reason. But the other, of course, well, I'll stop there. That was kind of a big reason why people suggested you should not get secondhand shoes. I
Well,
guess
I
what
think
what is
that
your thought?
I would that I think I would say yes, that certainly is a very real possibility. But if you were to find a pair of shoes that I don't know were Joseph Cheney or Edward Green's somewhere. I mean, you can kind of tell and look at it whether somebody's trashed it or not, or whether someone gave it some TLC. So those kinds of shoes at that higher end, because they're made so much better with better components, etc., you don't always risk that happening with shoes. So in the lower price shoes, yeah, you could easily say, because if they're the interior, say the insole is part fiber or pressed board or something like that, that can get very warped and stuff like that. But a good leather shoe, inside and out, maintained well. Maybe they've kept shoe trees in them, maybe not. I don't know. But they're not a bad bargain if you can find them. But yes, there is always that situation where, yes, if you're not careful and you don't know what to look for, you can get had, and it happens to people all the time, and happens that it's a big market with respect to somewhere on the internet. I don't know whether it's all these secondhand places, eBay, and I don't know all the ones that are out there, but there are also places for that are hooking women in with slightly used Gucci bags, Louis Vuitton bags. Everybody has, well, everybody, but not everybody, but a lot of people have this bent that they want to carry somebody's initials around, and we're that status conscious society that we are. So a lot of times it's a grift, and I had many women who have come to me with these handbags. Oh, I got this online, and they said it was slightly used, and the thing is, I don't know whether it's a bait and switch, but it's like anything else. It's the buyer beware sort of thing. Know your product, know what you're looking for. Make sure if you're going to do that, you have some kind of a return policy if, in fact, the shoe doesn't fit you right, or it's not sized properly, or something of that nature, that it's a reputable place. There's a lot of people who aren't reputable, but there are some that are reputable and will deal honorably with you in those kinds of
Okay.
situations.
So essentially, secondhand shoes isn't not necessarily um, the I guess scenario I brought up where the footbed isn't going to conform and it's going to be bad for you. That isn't necessarily something you should worry about, at least with the higher end shoes.
Yes, if it's a brand that you know that has good provenance to it, then I would say you're probably all right. But again, you have to do your due diligence. You have to be able to pick it up and kick the tires, so to speak, and hopefully take it for a test drive. I don't know
Okay.
if that's possible. So that's but it's like anything else. Let the buyer beware.
Right.
It's that old caveat.
Right. And I guess
So,
on that note, I was going to say the other thing that kind of scared me a bit. I don't know if I really bought secondhand shoes after that, but um, it was like, oh, you got to beware of the previous owner's foot fungus if they had it, because then you could get
yeah,
it.
well, I mean that's true. I mean but that's that's why there's Lysol in the world. I mean it doesn't last forever. I mean you can put grass clippings inside a shoe to absorb moisture and fungus and stuff like that. I mean and Lysol to kill it. I mean, obviously, if there are visible signs, you look inside and you kind of see that little bit of growth hanging out there, or dog hair or cat hair accumulated, and so it's probably something you want to stay away from. So it's like anything else.
Right.
Know what you're doing. Go in with as much good information as you can garner about it, and just be wise about it.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. Um, all right. Let's see. Well, are we getting to that point where
Yeah, we
we
can
should?
probably start to wind down. So I don't know if you got maybe one more, maybe two more. That's
Okay.
fine.
Well, I mean, not necessarily related to well, yes, it is related to shoes. I guess. I mean, I don't. I'm not a huge fan of this trend. I assume it's still a trend because, well, I think people still do it. But wearing shoes without socks, like dress shoes without socks, I mean,
Hmm.
is well, is that? Mm, well, okay. Well, maybe I'll go back a bit. The benefit of wearing socks with shoes. I mean, uh, from your perspective, is it that they, I don't know, protect the inside of your shoes from like they by like the first defense against sweat and all that stuff?
Correct. Yes, it is definitely the first area to absorb if your feet's starting to perspire. And as I said, if your shoes are got a lot of synthetic components in them, which is a good chance they might if you didn't you know um, get them or if you got them from a big box store, it's probably one of those kinds of products. So yes, so you've got to have a good sock that's going to wick away the moisture. Yeah, and some people sweat a lot more than other people. Some people take medication and can cause their feet to swell up a little bit. Some people, I mean, there's all kinds of things that can go on if you're, as I said, I think diabetic people have some issues about certain aspects of fitting and whatnot. But yes, a good pair of socks, I guess they can be pretty much whatever your fabric of choice is, provided it doesn't cramp your feet up or something like that. So, but that's definitely a good, no pun intended, first step. So, wearing shoes without socks, you could probably get away with it for a day, let's say. Especially if you're maybe wearing some of those kind of dressier slippers for people and whatnot, or a little ped or something like that. So, but you need to let them rest a day. You can't just like people do in the summertime. They take one pair of sort of dress shoes with them when they go to the beach for their holiday time and whatnot, and they just wear this one pair of shoes to death all the time while they're away. But you can't really do that. Or at least it's not recommended. So people just have to be smart about stuff like that. So that's what I have to say about that.
Okay. So essentially, it's similar to that whole conversation about avoiding moisture with the
Mm-hmm.
shoes, and that's essentially the socks kind of fall in the same category. That's like in
Right.
okay. Well, that's
Yeah. I mean, let me just say this with regards to covering this. Shoes, if they're made well and if they use good leather components in the making of the footwear, they have certain properties where, yes, they will absorb a certain amount of moisture and nothing will go wrong. But if you keep doing this over repeated times and don't give them a chance to rest and to breathe and to air out and things like that, that's where you're going to start getting into trouble. But as I said, good quality materials, good leather uppers, leather insoles, leather linings, and things like that. I mean, that's what it's there for. It other than the strength and the look and everything else, it does have these properties to allow it to take on some moisture and not get affected.
okay.
So, but it's to the word of caution. It's just you just got to be smart about it.
Right. And well, I think you've mentioned this a couple times. It's all about taking care of your shoes and
Right.
your feet.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
the smart thing, I guess, is to try to do that when you can, and wearing socks,
Exactly.
protecting your shoes, yada
Mm-hmm.
yada yada. So no, I think that's good. You have like a consistent message. So I think that's good. It makes things easier
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. Feet are important. You only get one pair in life, and sometimes people are just born with some hereditary issues with big bunions and other issues like that. But again, shoes can help mitigate some of that, not all of it. But the better you take care of your feet, the happier you will be.
I agree. I think I'm much happier having having had your shoes. I mean, sorry. I hope that doesn't sound too
No,
advertising for the
yeah.
listeners, but
This was
really,
unpaid solicitation by Herman.
yes, this ad was paid for by, but
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
no, really, I think I'm much happier now. And I mean, side
Okay.
note, I got a new mattress this week, and I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm a happier person now that I'm taking care of my back.
See?
Like it was
Yeah.
hurting me so
Yeah.
much. I swear I don't know why I didn't think about
You get
the
proper rest,
mattress.
you wake up in a lot better
Right,
shape.
and my back doesn't hurt, so
Yeah.
I'm
So,
just
all
better.
right. So I got time probably for one more.
Okay, perfect. So this is something. I mean, I think this is kind of a short answer from you, but we'll see. Back when I used to go to your retail shoe stores and try on shoes, a common thing that people people and myself included would encounter is that you put on a shoe and you think maybe it's just a little like a tad too tight. I'm on the fence, and of course the shoe salesman
Mm-hmm.
is going to come in and say, "Oh, don't worry. Once you wear it a couple times, the leather will stretch and it'll break in, and you'll be fine if it's just a little tight." So, I mean, I'm sure it varies by make and all that, but I'm kind of curious on your thoughts. How much truth is in that? Oh, it's a little tight, but don't worry, I don't know, it'll be fine once you wear it a bit, or and how much of that is maybe just like a salesman trying to get his commission.
Yes, to both things. I mean, it's a little bit of each. Yes, shoes that are a little pinchy, they can loosen up. And I've had people tell me, even in some of my handmade stuff, that if you'd have called me, last a month ago, I would have told you these shoes don't fit me right. But they finally broke in real nicely, and they feel great. Blah, blah, blah. So everybody breaks in shoes differently. everybody wears shoes differently. Some, we get back to that previous Q&A we just went through about perspiration and moisture and everything else. Everybody sweats differently inside a shoe, whatnot. So, and again, depending on the materials that the shoe's made with, can determine some of these things and mitigate some of these things rather quickly. A shoe that's got a lot of synthetic material in it, it's probably not going to move real well, because synthetics block, they don't have any pores in them per se, so they're going to block moisture and keep heat in, whereas good quality leather inside and out they'll sort of take a licking and keep on ticking, so to speak, sort of thing like that. But then also too is, some people just have some very particular feet, and they don't want to feel any little nudge, pinch, crease, crevice, whatever you want to call it, right out of the gate. So I think it's like anything else. If somebody goes in and you go to a reputable shoe store and you try on a pair of shoes and they're bothering you a little bit when you try them on, you walk around, just keep them on, keep walking around, keep shopping, and just see, give yourself, if you can, 20 minutes or so, and just keep looking at other shoes and trying on, and just have some back and forth with your salesperson and just see if things break in for you properly. If they don't, it's probably, a little questionable. Yes, you can probably get them bumped out, stretched a little bit, but again, if they're good materials, they're going to move. But again, some people don't have that tolerance to just wait. They want it to do exactly what they want it to do right out of the gate. And construction methods too can play a part in that as well. So I don't know. As I said, people just have to be good consumers about it. It's your feet. Make the good choice. And if it doesn't feel right, then I would say probably it's probably not a good shoe for you.
Well, okay. So in, I guess the example you gave, you potentially could just wear them while you're in the store, and maybe, I don't know, within 20, 30 minutes, you'll feel that maybe they feel better. So it should be that quick, or it could be that quick. That
It could be, yes, it could be,
okay, because
Not
I
saying
guess
it's going to be, but it could be.
okay, good, because
But I would think by 20 and 30 minutes of wearing a shoe around in the store and keeping it on, and say you're, as I said, trying on other shoes and stuff like that, but just keep them on and keep and just see if, as I said, after 20 or so minutes, it doesn't feel right. I think that's probably a good sign that you're not going to be happy with the shoe.
Okay, fair enough. And I think it just occurred to me, like, these days most reputable shoe stores are still, I think they have return policies. So even if they've been worn, so potentially, I guess that if you really, I guess, want it, it's the last pair of shoes in your size, in your color that you want, maybe you can take it home and try it and then return it later.
Yeah, well, as I said, there's always those must-have. It's like, oh God, I love this pair of shoes. I want it to fit. Yeah, so as I said, everybody's got their breaking point on things like that, and it's different from suits and shirts and trousers. The weft and the weave of fabric is a lot more forgiving if something doesn't quite feel, if it's kind of binding up somewhere in the shoulders or whatever. But shoes are leather is a little more peculiar, so it needs time to mellow, and it as I said, if it's good quality materials, they will mellow. But as I said, not everybody wants to go through that hassle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so patience is a key. Take care of your shoes. Take care of your feet. Avoid moisture. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Excessive. Yeah. So, so that's about it.
Yeah.
All right, we're right on the dot here.
Perfect. I think. Thank you, Perry, and I can't wait until next time. I love to hear what you have to say about Jay Peterman. So until
Oh,
next
yes,
time.
yes. Until next time. Okay. Well, you have a good rest of your weekend, and I'll be in touch with you probably sometime Monday, kind of let you know how my week is working out and what days we can work on getting together again.
Perfect. Well, I'll
All
I'll
right?
be in touch. Thank you, Perry. You
Okay.
have a good
All right.
weekend too.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Goodbye.